I talked to Silver today. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for the delay. I just needed to wait until we had quorum for this evening's meeting. If I could remind everybody to please put your cellular devices on an inaudible mode. With all those people reaching for their purses and their pockets, there must be a lot of them. If you could do that so that there's no disruption to the meeting this evening, it would be appreciated, and I'll remind members of council to do the same thing. There are some changes to the agenda this evening. On item 7.1, which is currently in consent, we have 3 residents who have registered to delegate this evening, but we also have received correspondence from Carl Brawley, Glenschnar and Associates with a request to defer this item to May the 15th. Planning meeting, which Councillor Bowman has agreed to do. So the 3 delegations this evening, I will give you the opportunity, if you wish, to reschedule to delegate on the agenda when this item will be dealt with, or delegate this evening if you wish. So I don't know, it's Basim Matuk, Zahudal Kabir, and Edward Zuchik. And I apologize if I've mispronounced anybody's name. Did you wish to delegate this evening? You can wait until the 15th. And what is your name, Edward? Are the other 2 delegates in? Will you wait until the 15th of May? And the 3rd, you'll wait until the 15th? I think that's probably your best opportunity, because then you'll be speaking to the actual report. Okay, but procedurally, Mr. Clerk, I won't need to add them as delegations, but we'll receive the correspondence and deal with the deferral at the time. Okay. The other changes to the, Councillor Bowman? Just moving through the approval of the agenda stage.
No, I just want to make sure that we're clear. Do we need to pull it out of consent first and then
we'll do that when we get to the consent agenda? Sure. On item 7.2, we have a number of delegates registered for this evening. Members of council, they are Andrew and Teresa Gell, Shirley and Ian Fisher, and then we will move to John Duhame, Frank Aloise, Mike Murtkowski, Eric Meyer, and there's been a request by the applicant Chad John Baptiste to go at the conclusion of the resident meeting, so he'll be the final delegate on that. And there is also correspondence received from Clayton and Florence Pifco. And on the agenda, it indicated that the Cycling Advisory Committee minutes and the Brampton Heritage Board minutes would be distributed at the meeting, and they are here before you. With those changes to the agenda, would someone like to move approval? Councillor Miles, all those in favor? That's carried. I do have regrets this evening from Councillors Gibson and Willens, who are on vacation, and Councillor Medeiros is absent due to a personal matter this evening. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none. The consent agenda, Councillor Bowman, would you like to withdraw 7.1?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So that leaves no items in consent. We could do that. Councillor Bowman, if you would like to move your deferral motion on item 7.1, so that we can bring that matter to a conclusion this evening. All those in favor of deferral? That's carried. Thank you. Members of the public, we've now reached the portion of the agenda for the statutory public meeting reports. This is a meeting of the Planning and Infrastructure Services Committee held in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. The proposals heard at this public meeting this evening are as a result of applications made to the city under the Planning Act of Ontario. They are not proposals of the City of Brampton unless they are specifically identified as city-initiated proposals. The intent of this public meeting is to hear submissions from the public. Members of the committee may ask for questions of clarification only, but will not engage in discussion. The first item on the statutory public meeting is a report from Claudia LaRota, a policy planner. It is on the city-initiated official plan amendment to the Queen Street Corridor Secondary Plan, Area 36. Is anybody in attendance for that item this evening and may wish to see a presentation? I'll make one last call for anybody in attendance on item 4.1 and wishes to see a delegation or a presentation. Seeing none, members of committee, we will adjourn that item for this evening. The next item is a report from Kevin Freeman, Development Planner. It is an application to amend the zoning bylaw, Glenn Schnarr and Associates, Absolute Angels, Ward 6. Is anybody in attendance for that item this evening? Is anybody in attendance for item 4.2, the Absolute Angels, Ward 6, application to amend the zoning bylaw? Seeing none, we'll adjourn that item this evening as well. Item 4.3 is a report from Kevin Freeman, the Development Planner, application to amend the zoning bylaw and proposed draft plan of subdivision, Gagnon Walker Domes. It is 2040485 Ontario Limited, Ward 6. Is anybody in attendance for that this evening? One last call. Anybody in attendance for item 4.3 this evening? Seeing none, we will adjourn that item as well. Item 4.4 is a report from C. Caruso, Development Planner, application for a draft plan of subdivision, Gagnon Walker Domes, Lake Path Holdings, Ward, it should be Ward 2, the printed agenda says Ward 5. Is anybody in attendance for that this evening? Would you like to see a presentation? Okay. On item 4.5, report from David Vanderberg, Central Area Planner, Development Services, application to amend the zoning bylaw and city-initiated housekeeping amendment, Market Partners, Mattamy, Brampton. Is anybody in attendance for that this evening? Would you like to see a presentation? Okay. So at this point, we'll go back to item 4.4, and I'll invite Richard Domes from Gagnon Walker Domes Limited to do the presentation on behalf of the applicant, and that will be followed by a staff presentation from Carmen Caruso. Welcome, Richard.
Through you, Madam Chair, just we're waiting on the slides to be connected through to the full screen from my laptop.
Okay. There we go.
We're good? Great. Good evening, everybody. My name is Richard Domes. I'm here on behalf of Royal Cliff Homes, also known as Lake Path Holdings, Inc. We are the planning consultant for the applicant. The property is located at the northwest corner of Conestoga Drive and Sandalwood Parkway. It's a 10-acre vacant site that has been subject to a number of applications in the past. The site is currently zoned for 607 mid-rise apartments and stacked back-to-back townhouses. In June of 2016, this council and committee approved in principle the rezoning of the site for a low-rise townhouse and semi-detached development. That approval in principle was conditional on achieving draft plan approval. So with that condition, my client submitted a draft plan 6 months ago as part of an implementation in an effort to enact the zoning bylaw. The draft plan of subdivision application is for 118 townhouse units and 4 semi-detached units, all on a public road network with various open space and floodplain blocks. We have recently received the comments from the various departments and agencies in connection with the draft plan application and are currently coordinating a response to the City of Brampton. Now I'll turn it over to Carmen Caruso, who will take you through the planning policy regime.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Carmen Caruso. I am a Central Area Planner. I'm responsible for managing the review of the application for the proposed plan of subdivision for 118 street townhouses and 4 semi-detached units. The applicant has described the proposal. Now I will describe the technical aspects, land use status, and the next steps. Site is located on the northwest corner of Sandalwood Parkway East and Conestoga Drive, and is municipally known as 100 Conestoga Drive. Site is designated residential in the official plan, which permits a full range of housing types, including mid, medium, and low-rise apartment buildings, semi-detached, and single-detached units. The proposal to develop the site with street townhomes and semi-detached units does not require an official plan amendment. Site is designated town center and urban public open space in the Heart Lake West Secondary Plan. The town center designation for this site permits low-rise apartment buildings and stacked back-to-back townhouses. Maximum building height is 4 stories, and the maximum total number of units is 607 units, residential units. The urban public space designation requires that the applicant demonstrate that all significant environmental features are protected and adequately buffered. This designation also requires that land be provided or a levy be paid at the discretion of the city, and the land or levy will be used for open space purposes. Since the built form and the density proposed as part of this application is significantly less than what is expected in the secondary plan, an amendment to the secondary plan is required. Zoning on the property permits apartment dwellings, back-to-back stacked townhouse dwellings, and open space uses. Since street townhouses and semi-detached units are not permitted in this zone, an amendment to the zoning bylaw is required. As the applicant noted, that the amendments to the secondary plan and the zoning bylaw were approved in principle on June 6, 2016. The final version of these amendments will be forwarded to council during the processing of this application. This application was circulated to a number of internal departments and external agencies. So after this public meeting, further review and analysis of the proposal will take place. Issues such as road and lot configuration, urban design, and pedestrian connectivity will be assessed. Staff will also evaluate comments from circulated agencies, departments, as well as address concerns raised at this public meeting by residents. Once the analysis and assessment of the proposal is complete, staff will return to the Planning and Development Committee with a recommendation report that evaluates the appropriateness of the proposal. All members of the public that provide their contact information with respect to this application will be advised when the future recommendation report will be forwarded for consideration by committee. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. I'd now like to invite anybody from the public who wishes to come forward and make comments on this evening. I just ask you to sign in at the front, and I'm sorry I don't know our staff member's name. Richa? She has a nice smile. If anybody else wishes to speak on this, if you could just line up at the back, that would be appreciated. Hi, welcome. If you could state your name for the public record, and I'd like to remind you you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair and esteemed councillors. My name is Heidi Wilbur, and I'm representing my family and community members with regards to the Royal Cliff Lake Path Holdings draft proposal presented this evening. And I'm going to be repeating some of the stuff that was already presented, sorry. Last year in June, you unanimously ratified the receipt of Royal Cliff's proposal for a predominantly lower density townhouse development versus the planning department's proposal for increasing the density. We would like to thank you all again for your previous decision in ratifying this. Since June, Royal Cliff and their urban planners have worked diligently to meet the planning department's stipulations to bring the finer details of the development into compliance, and have today officially presented their plan to you in the format of their draft proposal as presented tonight. The residents of the Heart Lake community would like to thank the Del Dugan family at Royal Cliff and the many employees at Gagnon, Walker, and Gomez for continuing in their efforts to plan to build the development as was agreed in principle 3 years ago. We would like to offer our continued support of these endeavors to bring this development up to and past the next steps. Many of us have been here before you during the last decade that this development has been in the works. It's been a stressful time for all of us in the community, and the entire process very long and drawn out. Our hope is that today you will vote in favor of ratifying this current draft proposal, and to also put forth a motion to table a rezoning of these lands to match the current development proposal, which would finally remove the current zoning for 607 mid-rises. Doing this will show our community, the developer, and the urban planners that you are in fact serious about listening to your constituents and making Brampton a welcome place for corporations to want to conduct their businesses. Thank you very much for considering your time.
Thanks,
Let me say
Heidi.
that again. Thank you all very much for your time in considering my comments. I don't do this very often, but this is important.
did
I had to
fine.
do it. We're very passionate. Thank you.
And just by way of clarification, this evening will be the rezoning application consideration. Matters related to the site plan, moving through to building permit is a separate process, but thank you. Hello, good evening. If you could state your name.
Hi, my
Please.
name is Donna Brennan. I've been here a few times. I just decided to speak now because a few of my Heart Lake members, they're not really exactly sure what it is we're here for tonight, what exactly the bottom line is. Are we here to find out that we're sticking with the 118 units and 4 semis, or is this continuing to go forward onto more discussions? I actually thought we were coming tonight because they've had a sign up actually at the property for a sales office amendment. So this discussion about units and stuff, again, I'm kind of surprised again about. So I'm speaking for the people that are quiet. Sorry, I'm not one of them.
No, and it is important that you, that you leave here this evening understanding.
Really, black and white, what it is that we are dealing with. So if you can
Sure.
give us a quick answer. Thank you, guys, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I'll let Mr. Parsons respond to
Yeah,
that.
thank you, Madam Chair. So to really reiterate some of the items that were identified just through the quick presentation, what we are dealing with tonight with this item is the plan of subdivision that is submitted for this site, which is associated with but different from the application for rezoning and official plan amendment on this site. The official plan amendment and the rezoning amendment, that's part of an application that was previously submitted, previously dealt with by way of a public meeting, and previously dealt with by way of an approval in principle that was received from council. The full approvals for that rezoning and official plan amendment, however, have not been provided because of the need to receive this plan of subdivision application now. This plan of subdivision application, as today is really the public meeting for this item, still has to go through various processing steps so that it can essentially catch up to what was already reviewed in a fulsome manner, the rezoning and the official plan amendment. If I can really just describe what the official plan amendment and the rezoning bylaw amendment have done, or really essentially do, and to differentiate between those items and now this plan of subdivision. The rezoning and the official plan amendments really deal with the land uses on the site. It identifies and it ultimately provides permissions for the uses themselves. The subdivision that's associated, which we're dealing with specifically tonight, really deals with the layout and the separation of various lotting, the residential lots that you see and blocks that you see on this plan here, and the street also as well. It's those items that have to be dealt with formally through a plan of subdivision to actually create those lots, create the streets. And so that the two, be it the zoning, the rezoning and the official plan amendment, and then also with now the plan of subdivision, they have to be dealt with together. I believe generally the reason for the separation between really what had been dealt with previously and what's now being dealt with, because oftentimes they are dealt with really at the same time. I believe they were separated out really by way of the applicant, the owner's desire to first understand and receive support for the rezoning and the uses themselves. And now that support has been received by way of the previous committee and council approval in principle, they now see fit to come forward with the more detailed plan of subdivision application.
That was a long answer.
So, at the end of the day, are we changing anything? Because I hear this go around in a circle, and I feel like the amendment is going to possibly change these 118 units to God knows what again, and we've been fighting this forever. Like, do we have to bring Ross Feldman up here? No. When is this going to die? Like, we shouldn't be amending anything. We should be digging in the ground. Michael should not have to be dealing with this. This has been like forever. We thought this was dealt with like probably, I feel, at least 1.5 to 2 years ago. We've been in court, like, I've seen, what's his name, grow up here. Like, I know I'm not that old myself. Like, it's, how long is this going to go on? And are we changing?
Donna,
sorry, where are
if I
you?
can.
Sorry.
Over here.
Sorry. I just feel like, are we coming to an end? Like, I thought the sales office was put up, and people in my community are asking me, like, when are we buying these units?
This
how much are they gonna be?
application was a little bit of a misfit toy. Mm-hmm. It wasn't dealt with in the usual fashion of most rezoning applications, because essentially council preempted the process by approving in principle a reduction in the density on this site. Mm-hmm. Staff can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong. I think, Mr. Parsons, what the residents are looking for this evening is this as close to the finished product as they can they feel confident that this is as close to the finished product in number? Perhaps the layout changes a little bit, perhaps it is amended 1 or 2 in either direction, but they're not going to see it escalate to 2, 3, or 600 units.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so through you, Madam Chair, that's essentially correct. This plan of subdivision, again, which is just a key piece which is associated with the project as a whole, and an item that has to be dealt with. It does mirror what had been previously approved in principle by council. There are some changes to this plan from the really concept plan that was approved in principle by council before. Slight tweaks, if I may. The street location of Street A, I believe that's shifted up at the north end so that it intersects with Loafers Lake Lane at a different location. There are some minor changes to this plan from what the applicant had put forward before. Again, this is still the applicant's plan. They have saw fit to make some adjustments to it. But it essentially does mirror the approvals that were, in principle, that were provided by council previously.
Like, we really don't care. We do, I'm sure, but we really don't care where street A, B, and C is gonna be. We just don't want it to be going up and out and all around.
And what staff will be looking for, and our traffic staff and engineering, this is a sensitive site in the sense that there is conservation lands immediately to
And
the
flooding.
west, and there's always some modifications that need to be, or adjustments that need to be done. Traffic will look at how the vehicular traffic moves through the site and so on. Those are the kinds of adjustments and modifications that will be made. But I think, as I said, what the community, if I were the community, living there, I would want to know that this is not gonna go to 200 or 500 or 600. At this
Exactly.
point in time, it's
Thank
as
you.
close to finish.
Thank you. And we have you on video.
And he said I was
tonight.
essentially, he said I was
Sorry, I
essentially
shouldn't-
right, and that's about as good as you're gonna get.
We just need to know in our hearts that, like, I'm getting old, need to get on with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
guys.
Mr. O'Brien,
Hi, everyone. Good evening. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here. I'm a big believer in the system, how it's always been working in the best interest of the collective good. I was looking forward to coming here tonight just so I could, I was hoping, put at my collective vote the pretty project, and, we'll go forward from there. From what I gathered tonight, especially with Donna's added request, it looks like we're still going in the same direction. There's some final tweaking to be done. Everything seems to be promising as from the time we first started, and give due credit to the late regional councillor Paul Paleschi for first bringing it to our attention way back about 11 years ago, and to find ourselves here today in the spirit of his best intentions, and still everyone else collective best intentions. I really don't have any doubt that we're going to come to good terms, and everyone's going to be as happy as can be, considering that originally we were shocked with, out of the possibilities of high rise to where now we've got low rise, kind of what we wanted all along. So I think we got a lot to be grateful for, and that's why I came here tonight, was just to express the thanks and the sincere efforts applied from everyone working together to finally come up with something. Having said that, I think I'll just wish you the best to continue on, and hopefully we can continue to work together and find these solutions, and be encouraged as citizens that there is a system and a process to be a part of, and an important part that we play, and that we shouldn't be cynical and want to give up and think we can't change anything. We have a part, and we've been giving our part, and everybody's been working together, and I think that's a very good sign, and I think we got a lot to be feeling very good about, and the legacy of this beautiful project as it comes to fruition. I think we'll be seeing it, and we'll all remember we all had a part in that. I think it's a very important part for community building. So thank you very much for that.
thank you. Councillor Paleschi, I see you on the board. This is an opportunity for questions of clarification, but I will ask you to move receipt of the delegations.
And speak anyways, just because this is a long history.
11 years.
Actually, it goes back 30 years ago. 30 years ago, yes. But 30 years ago, my father started talking about this site, and it was 30 years ago that he started talking to the residents to try and get something that would work in the community. We can talk about thousands of people attending rallies. We can talk about buses down to Queen's Park. We can talk about T-shirt sales. We can talk about many, many open house, many meetings that went into getting essentially what we have here. I do have an ask. I'm not going to put it in a form of motion or anything like that. I'm just going to ask. We have heard from thousands of people in the Heart Lake community, And if there's anything that planning can do to expedite site plan approval, to expedite the next stages of this, please do so. I think everybody around this table and in these chambers know about this site, and I really want you, I know you'll work hard on the application. I'm just asking, it's not a typical infill site. It's 30 years of talking about this, and a lot of sleepless nights and rallies and signs and shirts and buses and legal fees and all kind of emails and meetings, and I can go on and on. I'm just asking you to please
So that was a
expedite what you
question
can
of
expedite.
clarification, Councillor Fleschy.
We'll move that into a question of clarification.
Terrific.
Can you expedite?
They'll take it under advisement.
Thank you.
All in favor of receipt of the delegations? That's carried. Thank you once again for joining us here this evening. We'll move now to item 4.5, David Vanderberg. The applicant presentation will be by Johnny Kimiente. How close to that was, to your real name was that? This is an application to amend the zoning bylaw and city-initiated housekeeping amendment, Market Partners. Welcome.
My name is Johnny Kimienti with GNC Architects. So we are the architect involved with the site. So the site is located at Queen Kennedy, west of the 410, so on Queen Street on the south side. So once again, just to zoom in there for the actual site. So we're on the southwest corner, just next door to the Shoppers Drug Mart Mall. So the next image up is a site plan. So there's an existing Tower A located at the right with 240 units. That's all part of the existing Phase 1. The phase that we're going to talk about this evening is the west parcel, so that is labeled as Phase 2. It's a second tower that's proposed. It's 31 stories with a 3-story podium. And then finally, the south parcel is an existing Phase 3 with 32 townhouses. So the east parcel and the south parcel are both existing on site. They've been built. The west parcel is the site that's under discussion. So this application proposes an increase in building height and number of residential units over that which is already permitted for a mixed-use apartment tower on the west parcel. Reductions to the required parking and building setback, landscape open space requirements along Queen Street are also proposed. The amendments are intended to allow the development of a 31-story mixed-use building with 272 dwelling units and ground floor commercial uses on this west parcel. There will be a total of 360 parking spaces which will be provided. A majority of those parking spaces are located below grade. There's approximately 17 spaces which are going to be located at grade. And then finally, we have a massing image of the proposed building. So it is a more slender point tower that meets the tall building guidelines, which is a 750 square meter plate, in contrast to the original first phase tower, which is more of a larger slab type building. Pass it on to David.
Good evening, Madam Chair, committee members, and members of the public. My name is David Vanderberg. I'm the planner responsible for managing the review of this application for a zoning bylaw amendment related to a proposed high-rise mixed-use building. I will be addressing the planning policies applying to this site and the next steps for the review of the application. In the official plan, the site is designated a central area and is located within the city's urban growth center. The official plan states that the vision for the central area is to continue reinforcing its role as a focal area for investment in institutional and region-wide public services, as well as commercial, recreation, cultural, and entertainment uses. A vibrant mixed-use urban growth center will include planning to achieve a minimum gross density of 200 people and jobs combined per hectare. An amendment to the official plan is not required. The site is, for the secondary plan designation, the site is located in the Queen Street corridor secondary plan area and is designated as central area mixed use. The central area mixed use designation is intended to accommodate mixed use developments incorporating any combination of commercial, retail, office, residential, recreation, institutional, and entertainment uses. The maximum permitted density set out in the secondary plan for this site is a floor space index, which is the ratio of building floor area to site area of 3.5. With the proposed tower, the overall development would have a floor space index of 3.13, below the maximum provision. An amendment to the secondary plan is not required. The property is currently zoned downtown commercial special section 3403. This is a site-specific zone permitting high-density mixed-use development that applies to the entirety of the overall Mattamy Rhythm development, which this will be the last phase of. To implement the applicant's proposal for the remaining lands to be developed, amendments to the site-specific bylaw are required. These changes include increasing the maximum permitted height to 31 stories, allowing for 272 dwelling units in the proposed tower by increasing the maximum number of units permitted on the entirety of the subject lands to 550, amending the minimum parking requirements so that 360 parking spaces would be required for the proposed tower, amending the setbacks and landscaped open space requirements along Queen Street to allow the proposed tower to be built in line with the existing tower built as phase 1 of the development. Through the processing of the application, the issues that will be reviewed include evaluating the impact and appropriateness of the proposed increase in height, the increase in number of dwelling units, and the changes to the minimum parking requirements as compared to the current zoning permissions. For the next steps, I will continue to process the application, and staff will be considering all the comments received from the public and technical experts through the circulation of it. At a future time, I will be preparing a recommendation report for the consideration of the Planning and Development Committee and Council. The report will include a discussion on any comments or questions that are received from the public. All members of the public that provide their contact information for this application will be advised when the future recommendation report will be presented. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is anybody in attendance that wishes to speak on this application this evening? Go for it. As long as you promise to sign in afterwards, if you could state your name for the public record, please.
My name's Joey Resnack. I live in the community. And one of my questions was answered. I just wanted, in the report, it talks about more information to follow. So I would just like to get information as we move forward. And just wanting to know and keep apprised, because it's important to me that the facade of the building enhances our community and we keep enhancing that neighborhood. From what I understand, they might be doing rentals, so it's important to me again that we're enhancing our neighborhood with that. So I would just like more information so that what we see in the picture, and then if we end up with a concrete box, that's not towards that goal for me. And the other question I just had, and I don't know if this is the appropriate form, but as we develop, there's a few buildings go up. For those development fees that go towards recreation and other things, will enhancement in our community parks be a result of some of the income coming through this development, or does it just go to like a big catch-all fund? Or will we notice, as we increase the density of our population in our local community there around the Queen Kennedy neighborhood, will we see enhancements in those green spaces and investments there? So I was just wondering if anyone could comment on that.
Who wants to handle that one?
So through you, Madam Chair, when we collect levies generally, they are citywide levies. Having said that, as opportunities and through the planning process, as needs are identified, we certainly target those needs. If there is a need targeted in this particular area, certainly our staff would look towards those opportunities. But from strictly a funding perspective, it all goes into a big pot, and then as we move forward with our various plans and so on, needs, including needs for this area, would be looked at carefully by staff, for sure.
Thank you. That's all.
And
Sorry.
the name of the planner in charge of this application is David Vanderberg. If you have any questions, his telephone number is on the report, which is available online. Is it printed on the agenda? It is? Okay. So David Vanderberg is your point of contact. If you have any other comments that you want to offer on the application this evening, or any other questions as the process unfolds. Okay?
Perfect. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Terrific, thank you. Councillor Palashi, I'm going to wait until the delegations are finished. No, sorry. Putting my foot down. Hi, welcome.
Good evening, Chair, Mayor, and councillors. I actually live in 215 Queen Street, the existing building. My name is Bob Punya. I live in 1903. I just had a few points that I think need to be clarified here, or that should be stated first and foremost. When this building was made, there was a diagram shown to all the residents that purchased the building that another building, the proposed one today, is showing 31 floors. When it was at that time, I believe it was at 18 or 19 floors. It's definitely a lot bigger now. The major issue is our building was designed to co-work with that building, and now it's being designed to be on its own. So we have all this ground floor usage that was meant for two buildings. Now I guess we're holding the brunt or bearing the brunt of using that space when it was initially meant for two buildings. And as I discussed with the developer or the architect here, that the common areas are going to be separate and not be used together, which is a definite concern to the residents of 215. The next issue I had was the access for the parking. I was told that it was there's extra public parking underground, but the access to underground is through the initial condo, which means all of our vehicles, I guess visitors have to go through to all of our vehicles to get to wherever their parking is. And we've already made the investment of the parking for our section. And I just wanted to know if there was a cost sharing that was going to happen, or were we going to get compensated for anything in this? Because at the end of the day, it's common sense. People are going to park up at the top before they even decide to go underneath. And then also accessibility wise, what's the security that's going to be in place to prevent, because we've had issues in the past. I don't know, condo first opened, there was a shooting somewhere in Toronto, and it happened that they had a public, they had a private meet underneath our condo for some reason, so that's just a concern through public. That's when we put up some security cameras and whatnot, but I mean, if it's going to be opened up to all visitors, that's a key concern. And just to the developer / architect and everybody else that's in part of it, when our condo went up, I mean, I'm sure Mattamy a great builder and they're known. I mean, they've built quite a lot. Unfortunately, there was a power issue within our elevators, and we were without elevators for extremely long durations. It came out that the builder didn't use the correct power testing or load testing for the elevators, so our elevators weren't working correctly, so I'd like to make a note of that. So if the builder thinks that he can build higher or whatever, I think there needs to be a standard of testing that goes on so that we don't have these issues, and because of that, we're still currently having issues. And just, when this file moves forward, that there is a hospital there. It's in quite a close location to our condo, and basically the major concern there is, mud gets tracked and all the jibby jabba. And Kennedy Queens right there, it's a major intersection. There's a lot of accidents that do occur there. I mean, last week there was 2, I think. So it's just a major concern that if there is construction, there should be something in place to make sure that the contractors are diligently cleaning up after themselves. And also our area has, you can call it like an interlock design. And if heavy equipment goes over it, it's gonna damage you can call it our driveway. So just as long as there's some kind of, there's something put in there to, I guess, save us in that point. That'd be all, thanks.
Great. Bob, thank you for your comments this evening. They're all recorded as part of the public record and will be addressed in the staff recommendation report. And I think you've indicated that there are some harmonizing of the two projects and the need to address that. And of course, David Waters will make himself, and I'm sure David Vandenberg will too, make himself available to, if you have any other comments that you want to submit subsequent to tonight. Okay?
Great, thank you.
Thank you. I see no other speakers for that this evening. Councillor Bowman, would you like to move receipt of the delegations? I'm sorry, Councillor Fortini.
Ask a question for clarification.
Question.
So, to staff, so there's 204 units on the existing building now, the 22 stories, and we're gonna be, well, they're gonna propose to build another 31 stories, 272 units, and one entrance, they're gonna use one parking ramp?
I'm gonna,
I'm asking
please
staff, I'm
don't
asking
speak
staff.
from the gallery. If you wish to make some comments this evening, I'd ask you to come down and sign in. In the meantime, if staff can maybe respond to that question.
That's 512
If you're
units, and one ramp in and out, in the same building.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, that is what the applicant is proposing, is to use that one ramp and to basically construct the new parking garage as an extension of the Phase 1 parking garage. And my understanding is that through the condo arrangement, there was some of those easements and et cetera were put in place for that already, for the condo for Phase 1. The adequacy of that, we will be reviewing that carefully through the recommendation report and then as well as the site plan application for the site. So we will be reviewing the adequacy of having the one entrance for the building.
You said it was already proposed when they did the Phase 1? What this is going on, it was already in the Phase 1 project, to have one ramp? So I understood.
Yes, my understanding is that when the condo was established for Phase 1, there were easements and other arrangements put into place that would allow for that garage to be extended and to be used for the Phase 2.
Well, I understand the concern about there, because usually when you do a high-rise like that, you're paying so much condominium fees, and all of a sudden, really, you're taking the condominium fees from here. These guys will be paying the same, but they only have one ramp, and they're using the other people's ramp, so. Okay, thank you.
Staff will be reviewing. Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
If you could state your
I'm the worst speaker to come
name.
up, I guess. We have, I know we have quite a few neighbors here, but none of them came up. Our biggest concern is the height of the building and not having their own access to the underground. That's our biggest thing, because when we bought, it was an 18 unit, tower was supposed to go beside us. That's when we bought, we understood that. Now they want to change the rules and they still want to use our ramp. We have a hard time now with our ramp as it is. Never mind the extra people going in there, plus the extra that they want to go up. So that's our biggest concern here. We know the building was going to go up, but if they want to do it, they should have their own ramp and keep it at the height that they said they were going to do. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is the very early part of the process, so as I said, subsequent to this evening's meeting, you are welcome to call David Vandenberg or to send in emails, and they will be included and addressed in the staff recommendation report. Okay. Councillor Bowman's moved to receive the delegations. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you if anybody's going to leave the chambers, now might be a good time to do that before we move to the delegations on the next report. I'll just give you a few minutes. Members of committee, under delegations this evening, we'll bring forward report 7.2. 7.1 has been deferred in any event. And we have a number of delegations on this item this evening. The first delegation is Andrew and Teresa Gell. If you'd like to come forward.
Do I need to sign
Yeah.
in or no? Because then I'll be...
No, you are a registered delegate, and I'll ask members of council if you can please hold all of your questions until the conclusion of all of the delegations this evening. Hi, Andrew. Welcome.
Hi. Okay, Madam Chair, Madam Mayor, councillors, good evening. My name is Andrew Gell, resident of 27 Hill Path Crescent. My views are shared by my wife, who is here tonight, and many residents. I may be breaking protocol here, but I just ask that my fellow residents should stand for a moment. Thank you. Okay, at the June meeting last year, Council recommended the residents and developer work together to try and come to some consensus. 2 meetings were held, but the developer only made small concessions. I'm one of the 3 residents that met with the developer, and I can tell you that many of the residents' concerns were not addressed. My wife and I purchased the property we live in and enjoy 4 years ago, and at that time, posting was still on the plot of land, outlining 8 detached residents. And even though we understand that things change, 30 plus units is a 4 times increase on what we were expecting to be developed on that land. It may be obvious for me to say, but I'll say it anyway, that we bought into the community, not just the house that stands on it. We're not trying to be elitist, but we're just trying to protect the community that we bought into. As residents, we have to abide by certain rules in the community that we live in. For example, I can't just erect a 12-foot fence because I feel like it. There are rules that guide us. And despite that, we have before us an application being considered that is completely out of character with the rest of the neighbourhood in terms of style, including flat roofs, height and density. We understand that the land needs to be developed and the owner wants to make money. We understand that, but it cannot be at the detriment of the existing neighbourhood. All we want is to uphold and enjoy the rights we bought into. What is being proposed in this application is in stark contrast to the rest of the neighbourhood. All along, one of the main concerns has been traffic. It's becoming clear that this application is the first of several. I'm referring to the lands to the south of this current application. So we're not looking at 30 plus homes. Potentially, we're looking at 60, 70, 80. And I'd just like to refer back to Madam Chair's comment in one of the previous applications where residents are concerned that the 118 that have been proposed, they're concerned that it could increase to 60. And we feel exactly the same. As we feel 30 is too many, but potentially it could be 80. And because of the configuration of the land, those 80 homes could be serviced entirely through Hillpath. So, I'd just like to put forward that this application should be for a single row of homes, not a dual row. And also that it remains low density. In other words, the houses should be compatible with the existing neighbourhood and not at odds. This application is simply not sympathetic with the existing community, and surely the views of many residents must account for something. This is not the whinging few, but a unified, strongly held belief of the many that this application is not right for the community and must be stopped. I've got one final point, is the fact that so many residents voicing their objections to this application is a testament to how, as a community, we feel about the neighbourhood, and we just want to protect it.
Thank you, Andrew. Our next delegate is Shirley and Ian Fisher. Hi, Shirley.
I've come by myself today. I'm sorry because my husband is very sick, so he's at home today. So my name is Shirley Fisher, and I live at 37 Hill Path. I'm an original homeowner for 17 years. And I'd like to concur with what Andrew said in that all of the revisions that have been placed to date, including the 3 most recent ones, don't adequately address any of the major concerns that the residents have. When we all met at a public meeting in June of last year, it was Council's mandate that we all work together to find a compromise, to find some middle ground. And frankly, all of us are baffled as to why we're even at this public meeting with a prepared recommendation report when we have clearly not reached any middle ground. In fact, we're so far from middle ground because the application is greatly skewed towards the applicant's side. The residents are asked to make the most and the greatest concessions of anybody. This application is 4 times the density of what this land is zoned for. The height, the style are vastly different from our surrounding neighborhood, and we are also being asked to grant access from our streets, which now we've been informed that the city would like to extend through the new street in the new application to link lands to the south, which, as Andrew said, we're acutely aware will bring even greater traffic and disturbance to our side streets. We've been told by the city that the provincial direction is to intensify built-up areas, and that pretty much trumps everything. But if this were true, it would undermine the whole democratic process that we are currently engaged in, and there would be no point to having these meetings. Are you saying that the city and our elected officials have no choice in shaping our city in these so-called intensification areas, and no matter what, intensification is coming to a neighborhood near you? Are you saying that the province is jamming it down the city's throat, and in turn the city is jamming it down the residents' throats, and none of us have the choice whether it is appropriate for our neighborhood or not? We refuse to believe it. And if we cannot find resolution, we will appeal to the OMB. And we need to re-emphasize that this is not intensification of here, Ontario, it is intensification of our neighborhood. We are an established, cohesive, close-knit community with a distinct identity that has been in existence for 19 years. This application is too different from our existing community in terms of style, density, height, and it's too different from the surrounding neighborhoods where there are no other townhouses. These are insurmountable obstacles that would make it terribly out of place and would prevent its integration into our existing neighborhood. There is no appropriate transition, and it would look like it exactly like what it is, an afterthought. To approve this application would be unfair to both the residents in our existing neighborhood and to those of the new development. Someone in planning recently told me that the new residents will be part of our community no matter what. If that's the case, give us a development that looks and feels like it belongs so that both sets of residents feel comfortable with each other. After all, we are supposed to be building better, stronger communities, not divided ones, and on that basis alone, this application and rezoning should be refused. Thank you for your time.
Our next delegation is John Duhane, followed by Frank Eloise. Good evening.
Hi, John Duhame, 7 Ladywood. Could I have the subdivision plan for Conestoga and Sandalwood put back, please?
The one from 4.3 or 4.4 this evening? 4.4?
That's perfect. Now here's I'm sure this was approved by planning. Has it been?
This plan here that's on the screen through you, Madam Chair, as you know, is approved in principle by committee at this point in time in council.
Terrific. Okay, that's 10 acres, 118 townhouses. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 entrance and exits. Now,
Sorry, there's 2. There's only 2 entrance and exits. The one is on Loafers Lake Lane and the other is on Sandalwood Parkway.
oh, I'm sorry, it looked like, I assumed that road, Street A, went out. No?
Street A starts at Sandalwood Parkway at the bottom, on the
Uh-huh.
south side, and runs straight up to Loafers Lake Lane.
Okay, well, either way, townhouses put into a community that is semis and attached or row houses fits in. If you look at the right, where the words Conestoga Drive are, if you take the distance of that word, move it over to the left, you would have approximately 1.25 acres. Now jam 40 townhouses in that 1.25 acres and tell me if it makes sense to anyone. If a fire happens in this community, fire trucks can get in, ambulances can get in. There's parking. The proposal we've got for Highwood means that no, a fire truck could not get in. Parking is an absolute joke by anyone's definition. 40 units, and the average cars per family in Brampton, north of Mayfield, is, I believe, 2.6. So do the math. Where are those cars going to park? So obviously it's got to be street parking. That means that any of the residents, existing residents, who want to have guests over on a weekend or have a party, there's no parking. I've been a real estate broker for 30 years, and it's always a guess, but my best guess is that the houses directly across from that are going to take a hit of approximately $100,000. The detached houses in that area are roughly $850. But nobody is going to spend nearly $900,000 to look across at what will undoubtedly be nothing more than a horizontal apartment building. With all of the cars, with the congestion, allowing this to go through doesn't just displease the current owners. We are screwed, and I don't want that to happen. In addition, I finally got through to the environment and climate change people, and they're taking another look at that based on the past history of that particular site and the history of the site immediately north. There is no longer a creek, there's no ditch. Everything that flows from the north ends up right at the bottom of that particular piece of land. The only good thing is, well, we don't have mosquitoes living in there. I don't think we have rats. I don't think we have anything that would have to drink water or eat anything in that area. How the planning department could approve this, and this is what we were told as early as last Saturday, that once the planning department says, yeah, it's okay, based on a criteria of a program, provincial program 20 years ago calling for infills. Well, there are 1,000 or more sites that could be filled in. And in most cases, they would constitute an improvement to the neighborhood. So why this one gets such special treatment is a mystery.
Mr. Dehame, you've reached your 5 minutes. Actually, you've exceeded it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Frank Eloise, followed by Mike Murtkowski. Good evening and
Thank you
welcome.
everyone for giving me this time to speak on behalf of our residents. My name is Frank Eloise and I live at 67 Baybrook. I stand here humbled in front of this council by how helpless I feel trying to save our community from a major disruption that is being pushed our way. The decision by the planning department to stand by this proposal and not fully support the 20-plus-year-old community is deflating. I do not feel like a compromise was made or the government has worked with the people. I've read up on the smart growth plan, and I understand it. I get the objective, but it does lack vision and clarity on impacting existing communities that have been in existence for decades, and how it can disrupt its core lifestyle, the established aesthetics, and also our home evaluation that we all build towards to help with our retirement and therefore place less stress on our government. The smart growth core existence does show great vision and preservation for the urban growth centers and for all future land development, allowing new residents to foresee what is being planned before they buy. We're simply asking everyone to keep an open mind towards an existing community with the residents that have a valid issue with what is being forced into their neighborhood. I'd like to point out that our area has been doing its part by accommodating the ongoing changes as the parcels of land have been sold off. This includes embracing the low-rise senior residence building on Highway 10. But my personal observation is that it looks like there is no real plan for the stretch of development north of Mayfield on Highway 10. Recent implementations already look like a Frankenstein approach. We are missing simple key amenities like the sidewalk for the elderly. Now our government has agreed for someone to squeeze 30-plus homes into 1.5 acres of land, which I believe will not match the existing housing. It's like trying to squeeze a square peg in a round hole. It just does not belong. I would like to draw your attention to some information outlined in 2 documents prepared by the City of Brampton. Number 1, within Brampton's own strategic plan under good government, it outlines as follows, quote, "We have a clear vision. We are focused on progress. And our loyalty is cemented in understanding and serving the people in our community." Number 2, with the official plan under intensification, 3 points were outlined that should be considered for all communities to be fair under this new initiative. Item A, a sensitive and high-quality urban design shall be required for these residential intensification projects to ensure compatibility with the existing neighborhood. Item B, the ability to physically integrate the proposed development with the host neighborhood in acceptable and appropriate manner, including density, design, and functional and physical considerations. Item C, a citywide target of 14 units per net residential acre, 14. With the above said, I respectfully disagree with the statement that is in the current documents of good planning, and feel that working relationship between community, private corporation, and the City of Brampton falls well short. Here is a brief summary of our negative experience. Item 1, the community asked to place executive style townhouses on the land. This was dismissed as staff cannot dictate a specific sale price or target market for dwelling. This statement shows me that they have no intentions of a compromise with the residents about the style of townhomes being built. Item 2, why force the extreme of 30-plus units on an existing low-density acreage? A compromise, move up maybe to the next level of 15 units might be more favorable. Item 3, imposing stacked townhouses with flat roofs that tower over existing homes, which does not match the existing housing at any level, and no effort was made to maintain the integrity of the neighborhood. The fact that this initial plan was pushing the envelope with regards of number of units, style of housing, height of the units, the number of parking, entrances, safety, etc., the existing residents had to impose concerns throughout numerous meetings. It was not well planned out. It was not at all getting it done. It was just about checking the boxes and what the city and the private interests wanted.
Frank, are you almost finished?
Almost done, sorry.
Okay.
I would now like to read some quotes that reflect the commitment to the Brampton and Canadian residents. Number 1, quote, "Brampton's ongoing success is secured by the enduring commitment and participation of its residents," Councillor Palashi. Number 2, quote, I believe that government officials are obligated to advance the public interest, not the private interest. Mayor Jeffrey. Quote number 3, if Canadians are to trust their government needs to trust Canadians. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. I now ask the mayor and the councils to fight for the longtime residents of Brampton and not for the private interest. All this community is asking is for fairness and to take into consideration the serious impact you are imposing on us and our surroundings. I'm sure if you lived in our neighborhood, you would agree with this. We're looking for the true definition of compromise, to settle a dispute by mutual agreement, come to an understanding, strike a balance. In conclusion, I therefore propose a new balance is set forth to the community that truly addresses our current and future needs. A plan that will work with the residents so that we feel committed to the changes. One that we are proud of, one that we will embrace, not one that does not belong and is being forced upon us. Sorry for taking more than 5 minutes. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Mike Murtkowski, and then Eric Meyer.
Good evening, Madam Chair and council members. My name is Mike Murtkowski. I am a relatively new resident in this area. We moved to Snellgrove about 2 years ago, and we actually moved from a different development or townhouse development in Brampton. Or actually, I resided for 9 years before. We moved to this area with one explicit purpose. We wanted to actually find a calmer and sort of a safer area for my children, for us to raise a family. When we moved to to our house, and our house actually is on the very sort of end of the street here at the, and this diagram will be on the bottom right corner. We knew that there's going to be new development in this field, and we knew there's going to be about, I think, 7 or 8 houses being built there, and we were fine with that. This would have disrupted the street, but it still fit into the actual neighborhood or the field of the neighborhood. When we learned later that same year that we're looking at townhouses, and with an exit right next to our house, we were really shocked because we moved actually to this area to escape the hustle and bustle of a life in a townhouse complex. My neighbors actually have gone through a lot of the details of why we're really displeased with this, and so I won't go over this stuff again. My only other comment here, we're just looking at the plans. Where we lived, we had a townhouse complex with guest spots for parking and units of a ratio of 2 units to 1 guest spot, and those units were always full. Wintertime, half the spots were filled with snow. At this point here, I'm not seeing a very good plan that makes sense for me as somebody who's been in a townhouse complex before and living on the street with snow removal and even car movement back in and out of the units. And that is all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome, Eric.
Good evening. My name is Eric Meyer. I'm a resident of 26 Hill Path Crescent. Tell me if I'm talking too fast, I'll slow down. As you've heard from the other residents in our community, I wanted to convey a personal message from myself to add weight to the other residents' concerns. The proposed development before you tonight will not be conducive to our existing neighborhood. If you look to the north of us, we have Caledon and no high-density housing. If you look to the south of us, the only high-density housing is south of Bovaird. There has been ample opportunity in the past 17 years to build these high-density townhouses just south of our current location. However, single-family housing was built to keep in line with the local existing developments. That's on the east side of Highway 10. In all other existing and planned developments, especially the new ones located on Mayfield Road, just around the corner from us, each community has a transition from low-density townhouses, not like the proposed high-density that we have coming here, to semis, then to fully detached houses. This model looks to be sound. When we moved here, we saw a small neighborhood that was appealing but not overrun with the busyness and congestion that larger neighborhoods with combined towns, semis, tend to exhibit. The proposed high-density townhouses are not a good fit for our community. The original proposal of single-family houses is the only viable option. I request that council defer their vote tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our final delegate this evening is Chad John Baptiste. Hello and welcome.
Good evening, Chair, members of the committee. I've got a brief presentation, but I do want to respond to a couple of the quick items that were raised. So I may go a bit over the 5 minutes, but I'll try to stay within that. And that was my other point. I'll lean a bit forward. Sometimes I lean a bit back from this microphone here. So my name is Chad John Baptiste, the planning manager for WSP MMM Group, here representing Trevi Homes, the applicant for the proposed development. The site's got a long history. An application was submitted in 2014. There's a public meeting in 2015, open house in 2016, not as long as another application that was here earlier this evening, but still there has been some time with respect to the application, and there were meetings with residents as requested by committee in the fall of this year. Trevi has undertaken to balance resident concerns, input from staff on technical aspects, as well as council's approved official plan that implements the growth plan at the City of Brampton level. In June of 2016, an application for a proposal for 37 units, approximately 37 units, was supported by staff, and at that time, committee requested go back, speak with residents further. We're now here before you with a revised plan for 33 units. So that's 2 staff reports supporting approval for the development of the proposed site. I want to quickly just go off my presentation to touch on a couple of the items that were raised, and if the site plan could be brought back up. There we go, perfect. There's a request for consideration of a single row of houses. That was one thing that was looked at, but there was a planning concern in terms of, simply put, which side would be the front and which side would be the back when you have here Ontario on one side and Hill Path on the other. And that's where there's a concern in terms of making sure that both sides have an appropriate and reasonable approach to development, in terms of the newer approach to designing communities instead of having the rear lotting that you commonly see in other parts of the city. There's been reference to lands to the south. It was a request from staff that we ensure that an access can be provided to potential future development to the south. Trevi has no interest or ownership and has no control with respect to whatever may happen on the lands to the south, and really can't speak to that as a result. There was a comment with respect to intensification along Hill Path. For the committee's information, originally there was proposed access to Highwood, but transportation staff as well as residents expressed a concern with respect to that. Here Ontario was looked at, but transportation staff had a concern with respect to the here Ontario access, and so access to Hill Path is what's resulted. That's the only area that's left to provide that access. Transportation staff have reviewed the site in terms of it from a traffic perspective. During peak rush hour, it's 1 car every 2 minutes during peak period. That would be utilizing the site, and that's actually based on higher unit counts. So this is actually not less unit counts what's before you today for approval. The environmental site assessment work has been complete, satisfactory to the MOE requirements, and there's also a comment about sort of the drainage along the here Ontario. We're actually proposing to put a storm sewer sort of on the driveway to the south, so that'll actually sort of capture and address that and sort of get rid of that drainage swale as a result. So that'll clean up the look along here Ontario in that location. So I did want to just touch on a couple of those points with respect to this. So going back to my presentation, from Trevi's perspective, understand that Trevi has, at the request of staff and from residents, reduced the height of the units along Hill Path. We meet the parking requirements for townhouses with respect to this plan, both for the residents and visitor parking, and that does not include consideration, because we requested not to include consideration for some potential street parking along Hill Path, so that did not consider as part of this as well. We are approximately 40% below the density target, for a target of 1.5 FSI, which is the ratios from floor area to lot area, about 40% below that target for this site, and that's based on council's approved policy to implement the growth plan. So we're well below that density requirement. We're proposing to provide amenity space, which is again requested by staff and by residents as well. We've eliminated stacked townhouses. Again, that was a concern from residents. And that's a product that you've heard recently talked about in terms of the middle density, sort of that range of units from single detached to apartments where you can have people start to move in and integrate into communities. Stacked townhouses are considered one of the solutions for that, but based on concerns expressed from residents, we've removed that, even though that was something that was supported and was previously brought forward back in June. And the final point is we continue to support high-quality urban design with respect to the site. That's something that's noted in the recommendation report, and we intend to move that forward and continue with that to address the comment and concern about the executive look and feel. But it is correct, we couldn't address everything. We do have some tandem parking for the units along here, Ontario, but it still meets the 2 spaces per unit, and it pushes the density towards the Here Ontario side and away from the Hill Path side. The units along Here Ontario are a bit narrower than the ones along Hill Path, but again, that's pushing the density towards Here Ontario against Hill Path while still meeting the parking concerns and balancing council's approved Made in Brampton's official plan policies for getting growth and intensification along Here Ontario. So that's the balance that we've worked to strike as part of this. And very simply, to quote the staff report, the development appropriately integrates into the neighborhood from a built form and building height perspective, provides for sufficient parking, does not create a significant impact from a traffic perspective, and does not preclude the future development of lands to the south. The proposed development represents good planning.
Chad, are you almost finished?
I am almost done. I just want to quickly comment that we agree with all the recommendations in the report, and we encourage council to make a land use planning decision with respect to this. There's an opportunity now, balancing what you've heard from residents, your own policy, what you've heard from staff. There's an opportunity for council to make a land use planning decision with respect to the proposed development application before you today.
Great. Thank you. Councillor Palashi, did you want to move receipt of the delegations this evening? You don't have any question for Chad? Okay. All those in favor of receipt of the delegations this evening? That's carried, and there's one piece of correspondence. Move that by Councillor Miles, all in favor, carried. Thank you. Councillor Palashi.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the Snowgrove residents that came out today. Thank you to some of the Heart Lake residents that stuck around to support your neighbors to the northwest. Thanks, Chad, for your delegation. The one thing Chad references a lot of is the policies around proper planning in terms of the province's policies, a little bit of the city's policies as well to intensification. What Chad's delegation does lack, and this, not so much his delegation, but I feel, and so do the residents feel, that this infill site lacks is common sense. And the fact is, we deal with infill sites almost every day. We deal with them throughout across our city. Not something like this, though. This is it's 1.5 acres that we're talking about with a medium density. It's currently designated in the Snellgrove official plan low density. There was an application back a few years ago about putting in the 8 single detached homes, and that's exactly what this community was built for. That future density of the expansion of the current existing community. We talk about community, and the residents talked about community a little bit today. And the fact is that when you put, and we talk about this all the time when we're putting in infill sites, we talked about it on Clementine when we put in the semis in the towns around semis and current semis in towns. That was a 5-year-old subdivision. We're talking about a 20-year-old subdivision, almost 20-year-old subdivision. And you're putting something in that does not integrate with this current subdivision. So already you're putting you want to call it a spear down the middle or a lightning bolt down the middle of 2 communities. Essentially what they're proposing is developing another community, a community within a bigger community, a more established community, a community that meets regularly, a community that comes out of their homes, says hello to their neighbors, a community that when you're driving down the street, you're waving to whomever because you know them, and they live in the same styles of houses, and they have those commonalities, but you're putting in something different, and that's not something that we should be doing. We're already setting them apart by, albeit the style of their home and the difference of their home, and that's not the communities that we should be building. We should be building communities that are integrated and that work and that develop alongside and prove that, in Brampton, this is what we know how to do. That was my rambling. I do want to speak directly to some of the reports and some of the other comments that were made. While I appreciate the applicant's willingness to work with the community, and the applicant has made a lot of time available to work with the community, meet with staff, meet with the area councilors, and I'll do it. I do appreciate that. I continue to be concerned, though, about the impact of intensification of this site, of these lands, the lands to the north, and more importantly, the establishment of the current residential neighborhood. The lands to the north are currently a part of a OMB appeal, and I think it would be prudent to wait the outcome of that appeal. I think that the proceedings with the support in principle, I believe that staff themselves have recognized that they need to have proper studies completed before we actually adopt an OPPA and enact a zoning bylaw. So I think deferring this application would allow for sufficient time to not only complete these reports, but also have them peer reviewed and consider fully before we approve the recommendation to proceed. Just because these lands are fronting onto an intensification corridor, the burden of ensuring no adverse impact to existing uses and our community cannot be washed over. We really need to be careful here that we are not intensifying for the sake of intensifying. It is about good planning, and our staff recognized several prior to conditions which I think our community, myself, this committee, should have before making an informed decision. Asking us to support this in principle without having everything completed is premature, and in my opinion, not good planning and not good decision making. Let's not forget this site is actually designated low density. So in order to increase the density, we need to be sure that transportation, noise, design, and what you've heard today, community impacts, are known and understood. But they need to be known and understood now, or before we make a decision. Again, I commend staff, the applicant, on working hard to get this right. We have a desired option which staff prefers, so let's ensure it's properly studied and tested while we await the outcome of the OMB matter immediately to the north, which is of significant impact to the development of these lands. So as suggested, I have a motion of deferral that I believe, Peter, you might have in your inbox, and I'll read it out. That staff's recommendation regarding 7.2 Trevi Homes be put aside and the applications for an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment be deferred. That the deferral stands pending the completion or resolution of the Ontario Municipal Board hearing pertaining to lands located immediately north of the subject lands. That the deferral provides sufficient time to complete, peer-reviewed, at the expense of the applicant, and consider an urban design brief, noise impact study, and transportation impact study, including all other technical reports, which may inform the impact of redesignated the subject lands low-density residential to medium density. That should the applicant exercise their right to appeal the proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment, due to a non-decision, staff be directed to retain outside counsel as necessary and any other required experts to defend the deferral. So that's on the floor, and the last point I did want to make is I'm requesting a transportation impact study. A transportation briefing was provided, but not an impact study, so that's why I've included that. Deferrals on the floor. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Mayor, speaking to the deferral?
There's no speaking to the deferral.
Can't speak. Oh, it's not a referral. Sorry. Councillor Pelletier, would you hold your deferral motion until other members of council have had an opportunity to speak on the matter?
I can do that.
Thank you. Mayor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor. I think I talked to Shirley, it's probably a year now since we talked about this application, and I guess I thought we would be further along tonight, so clearly we're not. So I'm happy to support the deferral. I don't actually think any of the reports will change my mind. I think this should continue to be low-density residential. I don't think the studies will change my mind about that, but I wish we were further along, and I'm happy to support the deferral. Thank you.
But you're not speaking to the deferral because it's not on the floor. Councillor Fortini, you've removed your name. Councillor Pelletier, your deferral is back on the floor. I will call a vote on deferral. All those in favor of deferral? Okay, I'll just wait. The deferral motion is on the floor by Councillor Pelletier. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. It's carried. 5. Okay, members of committee, the two items left are the Cycling Advisory Committee minutes. They are here for receipt, approval. All those moved by Councillor Bowman. All those in favor? That's carried. Next are the Heritage Board minutes. They were distributed before the meeting, moved by Councillor Sprovieri. All those in favor? That's carried. There's no other new business. There's nothing on the referred matters list. We'll move now down to the councillor's question period. Are there any members of questions of members of council? Councillor Sprovieri?
Just in general to staff, in relation to this application, in the Ward 10 area, there's a number of these 1 acre, 2 acre lots that face on the major roads like Gore Road, McBean Drive, Corway Drive. Some are vacant, some have been developed. The vacant lots that are still in existence along those major roads that are within the 2 acre community. Because they're on the main roads, even Mayfield, Castlemore, there's a few on Castlemore Road, there's still, does that mean that staff, when you take this position that these major corridors are a good place for intensification, that those people could come in and ask their 2 acre lots to be converted to a higher density? And is that where we're headed with this recommendation that was presented here today? Is that you're opening it pretty well the door to these people who have these vacant lots within the 2 acre state area, that they'd be able to come in and apply for higher densities?
So through you, Madam Chair. Councillor, it's tough to maybe suppose and answer just, in general, as it might relate to a number of sites. As we always look at the particular context around any given site, and it often is, and that the given context around one site being somewhat different than another site that's perhaps a stone's throw away or just in general proximity, but a little bit different, that we might very well have a different finding as to what our recommendation would be on it. I guess the one case that comes to mind is the one recently out on believe it was the Gore Road, adjacent to estate lots where we had a vacant site. It had the one single detached dwelling on it, but the owner came in for an application to develop the site with commercial uses, so but lower intensity commercial uses. So it was really through that application, which occurred recently, we outlined that this site, that site was a little bit different than some other sites in the general area, which were also designated estate residential. And the difference in that case was that the uses just immediately abutting it were different and not solely residential. So in that case, we were able to support the commercial use, but in some other similar sites, I don't think that we would have done that because of the contextual elements. So we obviously have to have regard for the province's policies as it relates to intensification, but we also have to have regard for the community that exists in the area as well, and try to strike a balance between the two to ensure that we're not impacting the neighborhood to too great a degree, but also really delivering what we think is best for the community as a whole, and trying to conform to the provincial policies.
So in other words, there is not a one-size-fits-all, Councillor Spovieri.
Yeah, I'm hearing that, yeah.
Okay.
I gather that's what they're saying. But you're now left for interpretation, and I mean, interpretations could easily be challenged, and people can really try to make hay of situations because, the provincial growth plan is there, intensification requirements are there, and so just because staff figures this is appropriate, that's not appropriate. Once you open the door, it's going to be pretty hard to justify why one is okay and one is not. We're in a slippery slope, I think. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Palashi?
Madam Chair, there was a comment earlier about parkland and with the building that Matamy's proposing and the money that goes to parkland, and you kind of, I feel like you didn't tackle the question, or you could have maybe added some additional comments, being when there's an increase in population in one area and then the current parkland, it needs to be able to accommodate that. So sometimes, the majority of the time, when there's an increase, then money goes to that area to accommodate that increase, correct?
So through you, Madam Chair, from a parkland perspective, and I know that our staff are looking at parkland generally across the city, they look at service levels, which are usually based on population. So as an area increases in terms of growth and population, then the demand for those services, including parks, also increases. And so at the staff level, we're looking at that currently. Challenge always is, especially with developed areas, availability of land to service that demand is in low supply and is very difficult to find.
For sure.
So that is a challenge. I know that our staff are looking at creative solutions towards that, including that site that we were looking at today, the Matamy site itself. And we had a meeting, I'm not saying too much, but we actually had a meeting to talk about those sorts of issues. So we are trying to tackle that. It is a challenge, but certainly we do recognize that as intensification occurs, that there is a need that needs to be serviced, and we are looking at ways to do that.
Excellent. There was also another comment about, bringing a quality product to the market in terms of that structure, the Matamy building, and somebody had made the comment of seeing a conceptual drawing. I don't think we had really a drawing. We had kind of like the stick figure kind of thing in front of us today. No colors. I need to see colors in pictures. You look at Mississauga and some of the nice buildings that they put up there, and then I think in the article, in Saga article today, is the 5 ugliest buildings in Mississauga. But you take the ugly ones aside and you look at some of the nice ones that they're producing now, that can't just be by chance. Somehow somebody said to to a developer that you have to build something pretty spectacular, and which they have done. What do we have in place to ensure, and I'm not saying I put Mattamy aside, I think they build a nice looking product, but what do we have to ensure that, something that's going to go up, that's going to be there for a long time, that's going to shape a corridor that we have been directing a lot of focus and energy on? How are we going to ensure that a beautiful product comes to the city of Brampton?
Through Madam Chair, perhaps I can speak to that just generally, for our urban design group, who's not represented here tonight, but we do know that the urban design group, is constantly looking at really improving the urban design guidelines that we have to utilize with developments, that's submitted to the city. And one of the chapters that we have in the design guideline, booklet, speaks to tall building guidelines. And I believe that the group is looking at some improvements with respect to that chapter coming forward. And so, that's the one side of it. The other side is we're always, with our current, tools that we have in our pockets, our design guidelines included, we pushed, each of the applicants towards providing what we believe, will ultimately be a quality development. And so, with the Mattamy building that we have currently, we are at the outset of the application. We will be having dialogue with that applicant, as we do with all of our applicants, near the outset of all applications, and trying to understand how improvements can be made. So we will have dialogue with that one, and we are always looking at improving our tool set.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Dillon.
Thanks. I have a quick question, and I just want to apologize for being late. I just got off the plane, came straight here. My flight was delayed, and I ran down to get my bag, and obviously my bag was the last one. So I should have known. So
Well, if I was on that flight, mine would have been after yours.
Well, yeah. So I just have a quick question about Queen Street. Do we have I've heard a lot that councillors want to focus on the Queen Street corridor. I think the province has also indicated that that's a key area they want to develop for business. Do we have like a finalized plan of how many, what the numbers are for in terms of residential, I guess the ratio of residential to business development there? Like, what are we going to be looking at there? I know it's going to be mixed use, but I was speaking to somebody earlier from staff, and they said a lot of it's going to be residential.
Through you, Madam Chairman, the planning for Queen Street was undertaken and completed, I believe, in the mid-1990s. And it's intended to be a mixed-use corridor. So it's intended to be flexible from the perspective of allowing for both residential and for commercial office development. The policies that are in place allow mixed use to be developed, so it doesn't specify one use over another. It allows for a mixing of uses.
Is there, just to follow up on that, is there an overall goal? Like if we have a developer that comes in and says, listen, we want to develop everything as residential, there must be some fine line where you say, listen, we want to keep some 60-40 split or 50-50. I'm sure staff has some idea of what they want to see.
So through you, Madam Chair, staff is currently understanding that the additional details would be beneficial to all of us, staff, just the corporation as a whole, as it relates to the Queen Street corridor. While the current designations are, as were identified by Mr. David Waters with respect to the mixed-use nature of it with the commercial and residential office and such, we are looking at understanding further detail as to where exactly those uses should be and what kind of proportions as well. So we have undertaken a central area master plan that looks at the corridor as well. So I can't comment right now on the status of it, but I do know that it is underway. Staff has done work that would go along with that as well, through our urban design group, to looking at how development really should ultimately occur along that corridor in the best possible way. So I know that really our intent is to really convene a meeting amongst ourselves to understand where we are with that endeavor currently and how to get some momentum towards advancing it. So that's where we are currently. There is a goal in mind, and so we'll be coming forward in the future.
Just a general comment as well. I think it'd be beneficial for the council and for the residents to really see the areas in which we're really focusing on, because I know Bram West is an area. There's a few areas I was speaking with Heather about as well, so we can really map it out as to where the city's going to be developing in terms of business. So down the road, I guess that's something for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Dillon, I did have a brief conversation with the CAO just last week on that, and with regard to the Central Corridor, I said we needed to make sure that the individual applications didn't determine the vision for Queen Street, but that we had a vision and encouraged applications that supported that vision rather than the other way around. So staff are working to that end. Councillor Fortini.
Just the staff on the project there on Madamy Homes on Queen Street. There's already an existing 32 townhouses and an existing 22-story building on that property. So my understanding is that they came in, there was supposed to be also an 18-story building. How do we change that? All of a sudden, 3 years on the road, from 18 stories, we give 31 stories. It's a big change, because if someone bought a townhouse there or a house, they buy there because what they expect in the future, just like these residents do. Then all of a sudden, 5 years later, we coming along, we're giving these guys 13 extra stories, which were never approved in the beginning when they did the 22 or stories of the 32 townhouses. So how do we change that all of a sudden down the road? We just make changes after someone spends all their savings in buying something.
Councillor Fortini, any landowner in the city of Brampton has the right under the Planning Act of Ontario to bring an application. Tonight we dealt with the early stages of that. Staff will evaluate the request to change it and make a recommendation to us. The bottom line is we can't stop somebody from bringing in an application to the city. Staff are obligated, once it's received, to evaluate it in the context of good planning.
But my question is, when we approved the 22-story and the 32, there was also a drawing for 18 stories. That means it should have been approved altogether. And then all of a sudden it gets changed down the road, and it becomes 31 stories. So really, the residents there, so are we allowed to just change as we go along? Because, someone might build something, decides to build estate homes, everybody buys, and then a year later we decide to put townhouse across the street. How do those estate homes feel? Don't we have control on that?
Through you, Madam Chair, I believe that the response provided by Madam Chair does really stand in that case. Really, the situation that you're identifying is really remains that one of expectations. So some individuals have bought on the adjacent property, and they would very well expect it to that site, the vacant site, to develop in the way in which it's zoned. But notwithstanding that, the zoning with a certain number of stories and such, in that case on the Madamy Rhythm site, that site is currently zoned to allow 22 stories. And so the application that we have before us now is to increase it to 31 stories. It remains that the applicant is able to come forward with an application for us to review, comment on, and ultimately for committee and council to approve or refuse.
Wasn't that part of the process when we did the first application? It was all together, phase 1 and phase 2? That's what I'm trying to get. When they built the 22 stories and the 32 townhouses, wasn't that phase 2, part of the same application, site plan and everything?
So through you, Madam Chair. So yes, the staff does want to always be cognizant of how the area could develop. So it was at that earlier time that we sought to receive information as to how this current vacant site would ultimately develop, and the plan was to develop it with the 22 stories. Notwithstanding that, the applicant, the owner, is proposing to change that. So all things considered, it's for staff to ultimately put forward a recommendation after the analysis, and for community and council to decide.
just feel as a resident, if I bought there, I would be kind of feel cheated out. That's all. Because I buy what's there, and then all of a sudden it's being changed 3 years down the road. Meanwhile, I invested all my savings there, and all of a sudden I got something in front of me. So, thank you.
We move now, we have 15 minutes set aside for public question period. If there is an item on tonight's agenda that somebody has a question on, Donna, I see you.
My heart goes out to you guys. I didn't realize what the topic was when you first started, and then because my customers have moved from my area. I just wanted to say, I remember the area of Snowgrove about probably 10 to 20 years ago when our Heart Lake high-rises started to come up for discussion. And I remember that their vision was actually on Highwood. They actually were going to put in that little small area just to the left going north was going to be where that Reinhardt was. It was going to be like a community, was it like a marketplace. When you drive up
Donna,
Highway 10.
I hate to cut you off, but this is a question period. Do
My
you have a
question
question
is,
of staff?
When they are discussing, you know, going from 8 homes that would fit in there to, I'm not sure the exact number, why do they not move it to Brampton West, which is now up and coming and is ready for it? When you are at Highway 10 in Snellgrove, you've got that humongous church with the little tiny church in front of it. Then you've got the seniors' residence that has been thrown in there. It's like nobody has that vision that the city is talking about. And now you're wanting to kind of change the direction of that area when you actually have an intensification project by Michael Gagnon and a lot of other people to the west of Highway 10 and Mayfield. Where is the vision coming from, and does it just pop in their heads? Do they drive up there and have a look before they make these decisions? Because if you drive up and look at it now, I'm just flabbergasted that even that little church is still there. It looks, everything is just being thrown up and thrown out, and no real vision is thought through. And exactly what Mr. Fortini said, when you buy something, things change, but they should change for the better of the community. And dealing with like the Heart Lake area, I'm so glad that we actually have, you know, something that fits in possibly, because if those high-rises went in, that does not fit in with the community. So my question, bottom line, is the vision. Where does the vision go from the beginning to where it just goes in the air? And I appreciate your time, everybody.
So David Waters is going to
I will try to
attempt
respond
put
to
some
residents'
context. Thank you.
Comments. Our vision for the city, for city building, comes through our official plan. That is the vision for how the city is planned and built out over X number of years, typically a 20 to 30-year horizon. And with respect to the residents' question regarding that location, and as stated in the planning report, Highway 10 is an intensification corridor. That was implemented as part of the growth plan conformity exercise back in 2010. So it would identify the potential for intensification within those corridors, subject to a specific criteria regarding compatibility with adjacent uses and dealing with land use and urban design criteria. So the vision comes from the official plan.
Thank you. We have no closed session this evening. Those 3 words that we like to hear most. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Fortini, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you.